Hi, I'm Shelly with Art for My Table, and today we're making one of my all-time favorite fall soups. Butternut squash soup is full of comfort, it's creamy, it's flavorful, it's just so delicious, especially for this season. I played around a lot with the recipe to get just the perfect blend of flavors. So there's just a few ingredients that we're going to be using today. Of course, butternut squash. We're also going to be using apples, onions, some butter, cinnamon, nutmeg, and some chicken broth, or you can use vegetable broth. One of the things about hard squash and some of these wonderful fall and winter squashes is that they are just that. They're hard. They're really hard to cut. And so some people just shy away from it. But for most butternut squash soups, it does require you to cut the squash, peel it and cut it, and then you're going to do it on the stovetop. So today I have a shortcut for that with this recipe, and it does two things. One, it makes it so much easier to work with, and two, it brings the flavor up a notch because we're going to roast the squash first. So this is going to bring out so much more flavor that you just won't get if you're only cooking it on the stovetop. So let's start by cutting the squash. You always want to make sure you're using a really sharp knife, and the first thing we're going to do is just cut off the stem, like so. Now, the next part, we want to cut this in half lengthwise. And you'll see it's a little bit crooked, they're kind of hard to work with, so you just kind of do the best that you can, but I'm going to start at the top, this way, and then cut down. And I just kind of work the knife down little by little until I get down to the very bottom. And there we have it. The next thing we want to do is scoop out the seeds. And my favorite tool for this is actually an ice cream scoop. And it turns out it's great for scooping seeds out of pumpkins or squash or whatever hard vegetable you're using. What's nice about this one is it just has this straight edge on it, so it makes it really easy. It's a little bit sharp. Just works better than a regular spoon, and I kind of figured that out on accident, but now that I've done it, I would recommend that you just pick one up because it will make your life easier. So I've got all the seeds out of there, and we are going to reserve these seeds. You can actually roast them just like you would a pumpkin seed, and then you can eat them, or I like to use them to garnish the soup. This recipe calls for 2 squash, and I am able to get them all on that tray. And I have lined my tray with foil just to make for easier cleanup. So with that, we're going to get these in the oven. We're going to bake them at 375 for about 45 minutes to an hour, just until the outer skin is fork tender. If you decide to roast the squash seeds, you can work on that while the squash is in the oven. You simply want to separate the stringy pulp from the seeds. I often will do that just in a bowl of water because the pulp will usually sink and the seeds will float. And then strain that in the colander, and then get as much moisture out of those seeds as you can. So you can just press them between a paper towel or between a kitchen towel. Once that's done, you can spread them out on a tray, and I just drizzled some olive oil on it, some salt and pepper, just to keep it nice and simple. You could add other flavors if you wanted to, but for today's recipe, we just want this as a garnish, so we're going to keep it simple. And then these can go in a 350-degree oven. Stir them or toss them every 5 minutes. They're only going to go in for 15 minutes. So it's a quick and easy way. With these seeds being smaller than like a pumpkin seed, they just don't need very much time, and it makes the perfect way to top off your soup. Okay, the squash is out of the oven, and it's clearly very fork tender. and the skin has started to wrinkle. I took it out a couple of minutes ago, and so I can tell that everything on the other side is going to be really nice and soft. So while we're waiting for this to cool, we're going to prep our other ingredients that are going into the soup. And then I just wanted to show you real quick too, the seeds have come out of the oven and they're nice and roasted and golden and crisp. So these are going to make, again, a wonderful garnish to eat with it. So let's get started on prepping our other ingredients. Apples chopped and my onions chopped. I have my broth and my seasonings, and everything is just ready to go. I wanted to mention too, I love to use Honeycrisp apples. They're my favorite, but you can use your favorite apple in this soup. If you want to add a little bit more tart flavor, then choose an apple that has a little more tartness to it. I really like the Honeycrisp because it has just the right amount of sweet, but it's very versatile and you can just use whatever you prefer. So my squash has come out of the oven and it's cooled enough that I can touch it. And so all I'm doing now is just scooping this all out of the skin and into a bowl, so that once I start sauteing the onions and getting everything ready to pour into the soup pot, this will just totally be ready. Okay, now we're ready to put everything together. So we're going to start by melting a couple tablespoons of butter. And with that, I'm going to add in the onions. We're just going to saute them for a few minutes until they get nice and soft. Now the onions are nice and soft. Just takes about 3 to 5 minutes. Now we're going to go ahead and add in the other ingredients. So some apples. Then we have the squash. Goes in here is just 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, but you can actually use swerve or sugar substitute if you would prefer. You could also use honey, or you could use maple syrup. I really like the flavor of the brown sugar best, but I am a big fan of the swerve because it is a sugar alcohol, and so it doesn't give you any calories, it doesn't affect your blood sugar, and there's no carbs in it. So I tend to gravitate towards that one, but this really is such a small amount. And then we're going to add about 3/4 teaspoon of salt and 3/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. And then we're going to add 3 cups of chicken broth. Okay, so I'm going to give this a little bit of a stir. The pot is very full, but I just want to kind of start getting this mixed in. And we're going to bring the heat up on this a little bit, just to bring it just to a boil, and then we'll bring it back down to a simmer. And just let it simmer until those apples are soft. Now that our soup is simmered, it's time to finish it off. So what we're going to do is just blend this all together so that we have a nice smooth consistency. And you can do that a couple of different ways. So one way is to use an immersion blender. So if you don't want to transfer it into a blender, this is a great easy way. It just plugs in, you stick it in there, it will blend it all. I do prefer to use my Vitamix for this, or a high-powered blender, because it just gives it such an amazing texture. But either is fine. Ladle some of this, and I'll have to do it in batches. But I'll ladle this into my blender container, and then we will blend that up so it's nice and smooth. See, it's steaming, it's nice and hot. And I'm just gonna pour some straight into the bowl. If I was working in batches, I would pour it in a large bowl, work in batches, and then get it all together. But just to show you the end result here, you can see how nice and creamy and smooth it is. And then I will just garnish it with a few of our squash seeds that we roasted earlier. And I'm gonna put a little bit of pepper on top, as well as some freshly grated nutmeg. I'm just going to use a microplane to grate that nutmeg. Fresh nutmeg is amazing. Once you start using fresh, you will probably not go back to buying it already ground. Butternut squash soup with apple, and it was easy to make, it's healthy, and it's all finished and delicious. So I hope you enjoyed making this recipe. Thanks for watching today. Make sure you subscribe to my channel so that you can catch all the latest recipes, and go ahead and hit that notification bell, and then you will be notified when there is something new to watch. Thanks so much. Have a great day.